I fought for the new chest of fortune as a solo sloop against a brigantine and its crew, and this is what happened out on the Sea of Thieves. As I'm sure you're all aware by now, the Fort of Fortune now holds inside both the Athena plus a new chest, selling for much more and sought after by every pirate on the seas. If you don't believe me, then hear this tale as I awoke from the tavern, stepped out and spotted one of these world events. I set sail in the hopes of receiving my bounty. However, looking on the map and scanning the horizons, I was not the only ship heading for the giant skull in the sky. This happened twice, and both times there were 3 ships, including myself, hovering around the fort, but also both times, they vanished before any of us were able to reach them. However, despite this, I could already see that this fabled chest of fortune was creating much more tension on the seas. My luck, however, was about to change though, as another skull soon lit up the skies, before I set off with the wind in my sails towards what would be my first encounter with the newfound mayhem caused by this chest of fortune. As I'm sure you're aware, as a solo, these Fort of Fortunes were now much easier to face up against. However, I knew this was going to leave me open to any other ships ready to jump in and steal all of my loot. But upon approaching my destination, the cannon towers began to fire upon me until I finally reached the shoreline and all fire was ceased, meaning that we no longer had to worry about the skeletons up in the tower sinking our ship as we were facing the horrors on the fort. But as I'm sure you all know, anything on the fort was the least of my troubles. It was those that lurked in the distance in which I had to keep my eye on, ensuring I was not an easy sink. Leaving the Redbeard parked on the front, I was able to keep a watch over her as I took on the waves of skeletons, slicing my way through all but the golden ones, making sure to shoot them after they had a soak. Whilst doing this, I was making sure to pick up every keg that I saw and placed it at the bottom of the fort. Granted, this was not the smartest idea, placing them not far from my ship. However, it would prove to turn the tides of this upcoming conflict of one side forever. I faced off against the remaining waves, however just as I defeated the final 3 skeleton captains and the Ashen Lord had been awoken, leaving the chest of fortune in my sight, a real battle had begun. I saw a brigantine heading straight for me, and as I noticed how close they were, I knew that it was too late to make any chance of a getaway. I, however, was not ready to give in, and the last thing I wanted to do was run. So I decided to put these pirates to the test as we began to fire at each other. This did not last long, however, as they sailed right up to me with a stronghold keg, and I knew that I had to abandon ship, letting my vessel sink before I made a dash for the fort. Whilst I know they saw me get on land, after running around, hiding for a while and waiting to see what they did, these pesky pirates began to work on the Ashen Lord, completely forgetting about me. I knew that they had to get all of the treasure afterwards on board, so I needed to find a way on there before everything was completed. So I dove into the ocean before slowly climbing on board, jumping onto the ladders and making my way into the crow's nest. Now, of course you may believe that this would be a cheap way out, waiting for them to sail over to an outpost and sell everything I could. But I had other plans. The pirates were shooting the Ashen Lord from their vessel, hoping to take him out from there. However, they were just being bombarded by fire on board and molten rocks damaging their hull and masts, until finally, it was my mast that was under fire. And before long, it began to tumble, leaving me with no other choice than to jump off into the sea. I swam back up to the surface, grabbing again onto their ladder as I began for my final board, in which death here meant them certainly winning and taking home the vast wealth inside that vault. I jumped back onto the deck, taking out the remaining members of the brigantine, and before long, both me and the Ashen Lord together had taken out this foe. But it was now up to me to end this once and for all, whilst also securing the loot without a ship. I led the Lord quickly over to the pile of kegs from before, and with one shot, blew up all of his minions while seriously wounding this so-called Master of Flames, and followed by a couple more slashes from my sword, the Fort Vault Key was mine, and I laid eyes on my first ever chest of fortune. Just seeing it was worth all of this hassle. However, I knew now that I had to act fast, so I took the chest, the Athena, and the Ashen Skull to different parts of the island before burying all of them and heading back to my ship in the hopes of me retrieving everything. Eventually, I was able to make my way back over to the fort, and other than a new brigantine parked over in the distance, I could see no other threats heading my way, so I began to do what every pirate would do, and take everything. I took all from the vault that I could, before, eventually, I saw that the brig had decided to see what I was up to, and I was not willing to share any of my prizes, so I decided that I had retrieved enough already, and sailed hard into the wind, chest of fortune on board, and although they gave up the chase, eventually stopping at Ancient Spire Outpost, I was now sailing free all the way until Galleon's grave. Here, I was able to sell all of the loot I had fought so hard to obtain, before finally giving in that one chest that caused all of this. And if, like me, you cannot wait to see more mayhem caused by the chest of fortune, be sure to subscribe to hear more tales from the tavern. Arrgh!